conventions, an address published by Jefferson Davis and other prominent leaders had explained that the 17 Democratic States which had voted at Charleston for the seceders' platform could, if united with Pennsylvania alone, elect the Democratic nominees against all opposition. This hope doubtless floated before their eyes like a will-o'-the-wisp until the October elections dispelled all possibility of securing Pennsylvania for Breckinridge. From that time forward there began a renewal of disunion threats which, by their constant increase throughout the South, prepared the public mind of that section for the coming secession. As the chances of Republican success gradually grew stronger, an undercurrent of combination developed itself among those politicians of the three opposing parties more devoted to patronage than principle, to bring about the fusion of Lincoln's opponents on some agreed ratio of a division of the spoils. Such a combination made considerable progress in the three Northern States of New York, Pennsylvania, and New Jersey. It appears to have been engineered mainly by the Douglas faction, though, it must be said to his credit, against the open and earnest protest of Douglas himself. But the thrifty plotters cared little for his disapproval. By the secret manipulations of conventions and committees, a fusion electoral ticket was formed in New York, made up of adherents of the three different factions in the following proportion: Douglas 18, Bell 10, Breckinridge 7, and the whole opposition vote of the State of New York was cast for this fusion ticket. The same tactics were pursued in Pennsylvania, where, however, the agreement was not so openly avowed. 1/3 of the Pennsylvania fusion electoral candidates were pledged to Douglas. The division of the remaining 2/3 between Bell and Breckinridge was not made public. The bulk of the Pennsylvania opposition vote was cast for this fusion ticket, but a respectable percentage refused to be bargained away, and voted directly for Douglas or Bell. In New Jersey a definite agreement was reached by the managers, and an electoral ticket formed, composed of 2 adherents of Bell, 2 of Breckinridge, and 3 of Douglas, and in this state a practical result was effected by the movement. A fraction of the Douglas voters formed a straight electoral ticket, adopting the 3 Douglas candidates on the fusion ticket, and by this action these 3 Douglas electors received a majority vote in New Jersey. On the whole, however, the fusion movement proved ineffectual to defeat Lincoln, and indeed it would not have done so even had the fusion electoral tickets deceived a majority in all 3 of the above-named States. The personal habits and surroundings of Mr. Lincoln were varied somewhat, though but slightly, during the whole of this election summer. Naturally, he withdrew at once from active work, leaving his law office and his whole law business to his partner, William H. Herndon, while his friends installed him in the governor's room in the State House at Springfield, which was not otherwise needed during the absence of the legislature. Here he spent the time during the usual business hours of the day, attended only by his private secretary, Mr. Nicolay. Friends and strangers alike were thus able to visit him freely, without ceremony, and they availed themselves largely of the opportunity. Few, if any, went away without being favorably impressed by his hearty Western greeting, and the frank sincerity of his manner and conversation, in which naturally all subjects of controversy were courteously and instinctively avoided by both the candidate and his visitors. By none was this free, neighborly intercourse enjoyed more than by the old-time settlers of Sangamon and the adjoining counties, who came to revive the incidents and memories of pioneer days with one who could give them such thorough and appreciative interest and sympathy. He employed no literary bureau, wrote no public letters, made no set or impromptu speeches, except that once or twice during great political meetings at Springfield he uttered a few words of greeting and thanks to passing street processions. All these devices of propagandism he left to the leaders and committees of his adherents in their several States. Even the strictly confidential letters in which he indicated his advice on points in the progress of the campaign did not exceed a dozen in number, and when politicians came to interview him at Springfield, he received them in the privacy of his own home, and generally their presence created little or no public notice. Cautious politician as he was, he did not permit himself to indulge in any overconfidence, but then, as always before, showed unusual skill in estimating political chances. Thus he wrote, about a week after the Chicago convention: "So far as I can learn, the nominations start well everywhere, and, if they get no backset, it would seem as if they are going through." Again on July 4: "Long before this you have learned who is nominated at Chicago. We know not what a day may bring forth, but to day it looks as if the Chicago ticket will be elected." And on September 22, to a friend in Oregon: "No one on this side of the mountains pretends that any ticket can be elected by the people unless it be ours. Hence great efforts to combine against us are being made, which, however, as yet have not had much success. Besides what we see in the newspapers, I have a good deal of private correspondence, and, without giving details, I will only say it all looks very favorable to our success." His judgment was abundantly verified at the presidential election which occurred upon November 6, 1860. Lincoln electors were chosen in every one of the free States except New Jersey, where, as has already been stated, 3 Douglas electors received majorities because their names were on both the fusion ticket and the straight Douglas ticket, while the other 4 Republican electors in that State succeeded. Of the slave States, 11 chose Breckinridge electors, 3 of them Bell electors, and 1 of them, Missouri, Douglas electors. As provided by law, the electors met in their several States on December 5th to officially cast their votes, and on February 13, 1861, Congress in joint session of the 2 houses made the official count as follows: for Lincoln, 180; for Breckinridge, 72; for Bell, 39; and for Douglas, 12, giving Lincoln a clear majority of 57 in the whole electoral college. Thereupon Breckinridge, who presided over the joint session, officially declared that Abraham Lincoln was duly elected President of the United States for 4 years, beginning March 4, 1861. End of Chapter 11. Recording by Lana Jordan.